r/AskReddit. What's something your family raised you doing that you later learnt was really weird? Catholic mother, Muslim dad, neither really practicing. We celebrated Christmas though, and on Christmas Eve night instead of doing the normal Christmas stuff like cookies, milk, etc., my dad would loudly pretend to violently chase Santa out of the house by yelling and cussing him out and throwing his shoe at him, which we would later find in places like the fireplace. Grew up in a hoarder house. I look back at my childhood now and can't believe the cluttered nightmare I grew up in. Now I relish throwing things away when I'm done with them. Not cleaning. My mom didn't know how to clean and so couldn't really teach us either. We had this fungus growing out of the carpet at one house that looked like cooked lasagna noodles. We would just kick it out of the way when it sprouted up, or my mom would buy a new rug and put it on top of the old rug, especially if the old rug was stuck to the floor from filth or something. I didn't think anything of it and would have friends over who probably talked all kinds of shit about me afterwards. But they kept coming over anyways, so I guess they weren't that turned off. Using a ship's bell to call for dinner. My parents got tired of yelling for us, so they mounted a ship's bell to the hallway wall. They would ring it for dinner and any other occasion when they needed our attention. Like Pavlov's dog, I get hungry whenever I hear a ship's bell ring. We had a dinner bell too. Our neighborhood had very few fences and a lot of little kids, so it was quite common for us to be 3 to 4 houses away playing on someone else's swing set or climbing someone else's tree. Mom always had given her permission for us to leave, so it's not like we'd run off, but she didn't want to have to schlep all over looking for us when it was dinner time. So instead she rang the bell in the yard and we came home from wherever we'd been. If we were going a bit farther away, for any reason, she'd send us with a walkie-talkie, range of 1 mile, in case we couldn't hear the bell from where we ended up. Having your teen partners just move in. My brothers both had their girlfriends move in with us when they were 14 and 15, due to their home life being rough. When I was 14, my boyfriend of 3 months got kicked out, so he moved in with us, no questions asked, for 2 years. Several of our friends also just moved in with us. Before I was totally competent swimming by myself, my mom would put a life jacket on me, tie a long piece of nylon rope to it, and chuck me in the river. She'd basically swim me on a leash down the river for fun. Mom, you are the classiest redneck. When I became an adult, I was shocked to find out that other families did things with their kids. My mom was a shopper, my dad golfed and played cards at the club. We never had any family activities like hiking, camping, bowling or anything in the 60s and 70s. When I had things my parents could have come to watch, they never did. My daughter was a good tennis player, and I spent every afternoon and all weekends with her playing. She did get a full-ride tennis scholarship in Hawaii for college. I don't think I had one real conversation with my dad. When he was dying, I asked him if he could tell me he was proud of me. He said, "I'll think about it. That shit F's you up for life." In the summer, my dad used to get us up, myself and 3 siblings, at 9 AM, give us breakfast, and then boot us out of the house and lock the back/front doors from the inside. We weren't allowed back inside until the street lights came on, unless it was only using the washroom or getting a drink. Our ages were 10, 9, 7, and for the first time he did it because he told me, "You're old enough to look after them on your own now, and you're not sitting around the house on your fat asses all day." My stepmom never questioned it because she figured that he was just getting us to play outside for a few hours. Once my second youngest sister, the 7-year-old, got heat stroke and my dad was pissed that he had to drive us all to the hospital and waste time. Realized when I was 14 to 15 that he just wanted us out of the house so he could drink and watch NHL. We never really questioned why he was kicking us out because the other kids that lived on the street were also outside around the same time as us. Once we were invited into my brother's friend's house to play his Wii, and we were like, "Oh, you're allowed to go inside and play the Wii." WTF. Edit. For those mentioning the Wii, this was around 2006. Edit 2. For those concerned with how we ate, yes, we did eat during the day. My dad sometimes would put fruit or something out on the back deck table, but usually we'd get food from friends' parents. We'd find cash lying around, and save up enough to get candy from the dollar store. There was a farm near the house and we'd eat the chives that grew naturally on the side of the property / steal crab apples, tiny green apples that are super sour, from their trees. It took me quite some time to figure out that other people's parents weren't naked for the majority of the time. You have no idea how much I envy your guys' memories of Christmas morning being penisless. We only ever ate chili with mashed potatoes and applesauce. I thought everyone did this till like grade 11 when I had dinner at a friend's house. Her mom put out chili and I asked if they had any applesauce. They all looked at me like I was nuts lol. We were not allowed to have a drink with our meals. It could be the driest food ever, or you could be thirsty as all hell. Nope, no water. Finish the meal first. Bathing / showering only on Saturday evenings. I must have smelled so bad back then, especially since my dad smoked in the house. It was to save money on the water bill, but a pack of cigarettes a day was in the budget. Not cleaning our bathtubs. In the 18 years I spent living with my parents, I probably cleaned my bathtub 3 times. We just considered it normal for it to be moldy and dirty. At least that's how I saw it, because my parents just never talked about it. When I was a teenager, my mom started giving me tasks to do around the house. I would sweep and mop the floors. I would clean the surfaces. I would clean the toilets and sinks. But the bathtubs were never mentioned. They were just never in my radar as something I needed to clean, and my parents never said otherwise. It was when I moved out and lived with roommates and eventually romantic partners that I realized this wasn't normal. Now I gag when I visit my parents and I have to take a shower in those disgusting bathtubs. If I had friends over, my mom wouldn't allow me to offer them anything to eat nor anything to drink except bottled water. They also weren't allowed to use the upstairs washroom. They had to use the tiny one in the basement. They also weren't allowed to sit on any of the couches and half the time not even on the chairs. Fairly certain my mom was trying to make visits by friends as unwelcoming as possible so they wouldn't visit and ditch me as a friend. She thought that all that mattered was studying and getting good grades, and she was more than willing to sacrifice my social life / happiness to ensure that I got good grades. Whenever it was one of our birthdays, my father made us keep a pen and pad next to the phone to list everyone who called and when. He'd then keep a blacklist of everyone who didn't call or didn't call in a timely fashion. For example, the closer you were related, the earlier in the day you should call under his rules. I didn't realize this was messed up until I was an adult and had a lot of therapy. I've had several people tell me that I eat weird in relation to the order I eat my food, because generally I still eat the way I was taught as a kid. As a kid, we were taught to eat all our non-potato vegetables first, then the potatoes, then meat. I thought that was how everyone ate, until years later, eating with other people, they'd be all concerned that I didn't like the meat that was served because I hadn't touched it yet. Asked mum about it once, and her reasoning was that since we were never made to finish everything on our plate, if we were too full to finish, at least we would have eaten our vegetables, and any meat that was left over was generally put in our sandwich for lunch the next day, instead the usual Vegemite sandwich. Whistling for each other. My mom didn't like yelling up the stairs. Apparently an easier solution for walking up them and addressing whomever she needed was to stand at the bottom and give a couple of sharp whistles. We would approach the top of the stairs, and from the bottom she'd tell us what she needed. Time for dinner? Whistle. I want you to come downstairs. Whistle. When I whistled for my at the time husband, he got irritated and said he wasn't a dog. I thought about it and I was like, huh, I guess you're right. I now feel like whistling is disrespectful and I'd never do it. At the same time, I have no problem that this is how our house went. It was more peaceful than shouting and less work than walking. Just one of those weird family quirks, I guess. Not flushing the toilet at night. Our toilet used to be fed by a rainwater reservoir that was stored in a cupboard up high in my parents' room. When you flushed it used to drip for a while and would disturb them. Can't blame them. I just got used to doing it, and when I moved in with my girlfriend she was disgusted that things were left until the morning. Can't blame her either. My parents are really germophobic and my dad think he has to kill the bacteria on the bread when he buys it fresh, so he puts it in the oven to toast and almost ducking burns it. He thinks that whoever did the bread sneezed or accidentally spit on it. In my country we eat bread almost every day. I thought everybody did this. This is insane. I didn't realize how weird it was that when I was in 7th grade, my birthday/Christmas gift was porn mags probably randomly taken from my stepdad's massive collection, like 40 plus large garbage bags full. I ended up having some of the strangest sexual relationships out of anyone I know, and I think it was because it was so weirdly normalized in my house. At the time I was just annoyed because it was basically a non-gift. He had so much porn stored I could have filled my closet and he wouldn't have noticed it gone missing. I didn't have to seek it out. Changing clothes in the living room and terrace because parents say it's dirty if you are still wearing outside clothes while going in your bedroom. I just noticed this is weird when I was older and friends came by and they were surprised when my dad casually stripped to his underwear on our terrace. Parents are still doing it, but not when a total stranger is around now. I talked about how it's weird, but they do it when they already know someone close enough, and I had to warn my BF about it before he came around. He's now getting used to it. My family drives everywhere and doesn't stop. Sleep in shifts in the car, share the responsibilities of driving. There are a total of 3 stops in a day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. If you gotta go to the bathroom you wait until the next stop. There are no other stops. And I legitimately mean that. There is no, but what about no? I was raised that you gotta figure out a way to hold it. 24-hour trips from Minnesota to Texas. 3 stops, maybe 4 12-hour trip from Minnesota to Indiana. 1 stop 26 hours to Washington State. 3 stops. Maybe 4. That was my standard growing up, and I was used to it. Getting to college and riding with other people was so eye-opening and honestly very painful because driving a 3-hour trip and having to stop at all was, and still is, absurd to me. And I have friends that would legitimately stop 2 or 3 times for breaks. I've relaxed a bit with marriage and kids of my own, but most of the time I try to cut down on stops as much as possible. Upon arriving home in the evenings from somewhere, my parents would have one of us kids wait in the car while the other went inside, got their shotgun, and went through every room in the house and backyard to make sure we were okay to enter. I was unaware that my mom was being followed around by a very dangerous man, and I was checking to make sure he wasn't waiting inside the house. I'm not sure why, but it seemed like a good idea to be safe. I assumed they were looking for bears. Swimming in the lake with leeches. We just plucked them off when we noticed them and did a leech check when we got out. I took friends out swimming during junior high and then announced it was time for a leech check, and boy did those girls melt the F down. I wasn't expecting tears and shrieking. It's really hard to pull a leech off your friend when she won't stop freaking out. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.